Today is the 29th Sunday of the year. Our gospel text is Matthew chapter 22, 15 through 21. When I first began to reflect on this text, it's the text about Jesus and the Pharisees in confrontation, yet again, in which Jesus says, "Render to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, to God what belongs to God." It wasn't obvious to me what the theme ought to be. But slowly and forcibly and surprisingly, I might add, the theme of humour emerged. I think this is one of probably several passages in the Gospels where humour is at play, if we know how to listen for it. First of all, a comment about humour and the particular aspect that I would like to emphasise here. Seems to me that one of the primary functions of humour is to cut through the fictions and illusions which we take for granted and which we think are real, are the real world, to cut through them to what is in fact real, what is the real world, what is truth. We tend to resist that, if the truth be told, and humour is one of the rather beautiful ways to break through our resistance and open up what is real. Now, there are two particular aspects, I believe, about the real world, that depth reality, if we care to listen and face it. One is that life is tragic. It's not the only thing, but life is tragic. You can't avoid it. In fact, I would say that each of us is a tragic comic story. The sooner we get it, the better. The sooner we understand that that's the way it is, the better. Together with the tragedy, the second aspect is, at the heart of life is mercy. Mercy and compassion. So to turn and face what is real, to be exposed to the tragic, is also, paradoxically, to be introduced to the merciful and the compassionate. So let us reflect on Matthew chapter 22, verses 15 through 21. The Pharisees get their heads together. They're going to entrap Jesus. Their motivation is malice. And you can imagine them coming to this confrontation with the hope, maybe the expectation, that they'll take Jesus down a peg. So they begin with some flattery. You're a sincere man. You're a good man. We love what you say. So give us some wisdom. It's all a charade. Jesus sees this and exposes it. Now you can imagine if Jesus had fallen for their flattery and been humiliated as they obviously intended. Those Pharisees would have found that very funny, very enjoyable, delightful. It would not have been true humour. It would have been a way of preserving their fictions and their illusions. Instead, Jesus tells the story, takes the coin and says, "Who's this?" Caesar's head, etc. Now, I can also imagine that somebody on Jesus' side of the fence could have taken malicious delight in seeing the Pharisees humiliated. But I don't think that would have been Jesus' intent. And I don't think it's the main message to emerge out of this. Where I find the humour in this is where it applies to me. I think the Pharisees have been exposed as unwitting clowns. It's funny. But it's a gentle humour because I too am an unwitting clown. Many's the time that life has exposed me as an unwitting clown. The humour that is thrust upon us by reality, and reality says, "Come, meet me. Let your fictions and your illusions go." This really is humour at its best, I think. When we allow cynicism and hatred the preservation of our fictions and illusions to take over, we get a destructive situation arising. I would ask the question about much that is passed off as humour in our culture, especially on television and radio and public performances. Is it genuine humour? Does it introduce us to the tragic, to mercy and compassion? Does it build up? Or is it of the kind that the Pharisees had in mind? Does it cut down? Does it destroy? Does it push another person down so that I might rise up, I and my companions? Many years ago, I heard an American lady stand-up comic, I've forgotten her name, describe humour as tragedy with timing. I recently read Frederick Buechner, a Christian commentator, who said, the tragic is the inevitable. Humour is the unforeseeable. What do you think humour is? How would you describe it? How does it function in your life? More like the Pharisees? Or another alternative is humour is used to glide away from uncomfortable moments, anxious moments. We make flippant comments, etc., to prevent the reality emerging. And I would also throw in here my belief that faith, hope and love and humour go together. I do not believe that a faith, hope and love that is po-faced and miserable and humourless is real. I don't believe it is. There will always be good humour where there is good faith. I'd like to conclude this reflection with a prayer. It's a simple prayer. God, forgive me for the times I've missed or refused the humour you have sent. Humour that might have reminded me that I can be an unwitting clown. Humour that might have led me more deeply to face what is real, to know more acutely the great mercy and compassion that lies at the heart of existence. I conclude with a prayer from Michael Lunik, a man who has mastered the art of the simple and the naive in order to open up what is deep and what is real. Michael Lunik writes, God, when we fall, let us fall inwards. Let us fall freely and completely, that we may find our depth and humility, the solid earth from which we may rise up and love again. Amen.